ruled by kleptocrats. And that's the truth. Anyway, let's talk about the war in Ukraine. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is Bucha. Bucha is bullshit. It's just complete bullshit. Okay? It's absolutely positively clear that the Russians had cleared out of Bucha in their strategic redeployment on the 30th of March. Okay? The 31st of March, the mayor of Bucha said that they had complete control of the city, that Ukrainian forces could come in, and that everything was hunky-dory. And there were no bodies on the street. And because if there had been bodies on the street on the 31st, he would have said so. I mean, come on. You saw those video images. The bodies were all over the goddamn place, right? Now, it's very clear because that so many of these bodies, they had white armbands, which is the way that the Russians used white armbands to signal that they were friendlies. And the Ukrainians have blue, or sometimes yellow. Now, it's clear that all these people were assassinated. They were kidnapped, taken someplace, shot, probably tortured. And then their bodies were, dumped very photogenically in different places, okay? There's no question that it was the Ukrainians. No question. And why is there no question? Because the Ukrainians have done it before. Simple as that. The Ukrainians have lots of times done that. On my Twitter feed, Real Gonzalo Lira, which I'm still locked out of for a few more days, on the first pinned tweet, there are the names of people who've been kidnapped, many of them assassinated from that list. Some of them are still, held by SBU thugs and who God knows who. But and insofar as Mariupol, the Russians did it. And there are so many testimonials of civilians in Mariupol who said that the Ukrainians did it, that the Ukrainians shot at civilians, used civilians as human shields, tied up, tortured civilians, murdered them in cold blood while they were tied up and dumped them wherever. So many accounts that it's not a psyop, it's real, okay? And as I've told you, I personally know 2 people, personally, okay? Now, these people have family in Mariupol, and they have told me that their parents or close relatives, very close relatives, were experienced being shot at by Ukrainian soldiers. Okay, so it's not like, and of course, who am I? Maybe I'm making this up. Okay, fine, I'm making it up. But how come all of these video testimonies pretty much back this up? You go on Telegram and you just put Mariupol human rights abuses, and you'll find a whole bunch of videos, man. It's incredible, okay? It's all over the place. And why would the Russians, who've been in Bucha for like 4 weeks, and they allowed everybody to use their cell phones to send selfies and Facebook and all that good crap, right? For all those weeks, they were like there for 4 weeks. They never interfered with the civilian population. They never killed anybody, any civilian, okay? Bucha was a hard-fought neighborhood, but once the Russians had captured it, they never messed with the civilians. The biggest thing that happened was that a lot of times Russian soldiers would swap some of the foods they had for some fresh food, dried goods that they'd get, for their rations for like, fresh milk or fresh cheese and shit like that. I mean, you're trivial, right? And not even contraband per se, just swapping between civilians and soldiers, and it's perfectly acceptable. Anyway, the Russians never abused the civilians, never, okay? And then on the last day, they're going to shoot a bunch of people, apparently 400 people. They're going to shoot 400 people who had been helping them distribute humanitarian aid in that neighborhood. That doesn't make any damn sense. It doesn't make any goddamn sense. It doesn't make any sense at all, okay? I think the mistake that the Russians made was that they should have emphasized to these people, look, you helped us. You're going to be targeted by these crazies. Get on these buses and we will take you with us to wherever you want to go. Okay? I think that was the lone mistake that the Russians made. That they should have evacuated these people, because apparently these people were killed because they were considered to be collaborators, because they had assisted the Russians in distributing humanitarian aid. They had done this trivial trading, commerce, which is trivial because it wasn't even with cash. It was just, swapping stuff. This trivial kind of a thing. And out of anger, out of the fact that they're losing the war, which I'll get to in just a moment, all of this stuff, they just lashed out, okay? They lashed out the Ukrainians, not the Russians. The Russians did not do this, period, okay? There's something else, too. Yesterday, I did a video about this, Bucha more lies, and I floated the possibility that they might have been mannequins because some of them look so weird. They look stiff. And now I realize what must have happened. They must have been shot elsewhere. They were shot elsewhere, and they started suffering rigor mortis. And then later they were moved and dumped in the street. And because of rigor mortis, some of their limbs were still stiff, and they looked like mannequins. They looked stiff, okay, because they were starting to stiffen up because of rigor mortis. Okay, I think that that's what my hindbrain must have picked up, and that's why I thought, oh, they look like mannequins. No, they weren't mannequins. It's that they were starting to stiffen up from when they were shot before, because it seems that they were taken to different places, different locations underground, tied, and of course tied up before. They were tortured and shot, and then their bodies were removed from these killing areas, and then moved over outside and placed in specific areas and dumped. Now, I've also seen some videos, very interesting videos, of like somebody filming from far away as Russian soldiers shoot these civilians. Okay, it's very grainy and it's very from far away, like, when you zoom in with your phone, right? And there's like heavy breathing, and then these people are shot, right? You know what it reminded me of? It reminded me of Lonely Girl 15. Those of you who are old school internet dweebs like me will remember Lonely Girl 15. Lonely Girl 15, way back. It must have been 2006, 2000, something like that. 15 years ago at least. Lonely Girl 15 was the first viral sensation. It was this girl who did these videos, and very compelling videos, and she seemed to belong to some sort of satanic cult, right? And it turned out to be like a whole just hoax. Okay, she was a professional actress, not some 15-year-old girl, and it was just entertaining. I remember watching it, and I was like, "Geez, this is really compelling crap," right? And a lot of people were watching these videos, it was on YouTube back in the day, and in the end, it was just a big hoax. Okay, but some of the videos were like that, were like filmed from far away, and you could hear the sound of breathing, of like, fear on the part of the person filming this distant event. And I thought, man, this is just like Lonely Girl 15. The whole Bucha thing is bullshit. I think actually the name of it, Bucha, I think it was deliberately chosen because it sounds like butcher in English. Butchery. I wouldn't put it past these fuckers, okay? These people are masters at manipulation, okay? And they're such cynical scumbags. One of these guys, I forget the name of the guy, Aronovich or something like that. I posted on my Telegram feed. Patrick Lancaster, whom I admire tremendously. And if Patrick, you're listening, you are aces, my man. You are just all kinds of cool. Patrick Lancaster, a few days ago, a little less than a week ago, he was in Mariupol, and he came across a dead girl who had been tortured and raped and murdered. And they'd sort of like cut or smeared. It's unclear what kind of wound she had, because it was clearly like blood, probably her own blood. And also, but like cut and burned, it was clear, but they had carved in her belly and chest swastika. Really disgusting and despicable. And Patrick filmed that. It's very powerful, and it must have weighed on Patrick quite a bit. It certainly weighed on me as just somebody who saw it. Okay, saw the video. Him being there must have been shocking to him. And so anyway, this blogger advisor to Zelensky, some crazy ass neo-Nazi lunatic, right? He was the guy who did this video, this advisor to Zelensky did this video where he admired ISIS and said how ISIS was just wonderful what they did. Okay, just a crazy guy. He took Patrick Lancaster's, a still from Patrick Lancaster's footage, and claimed that it was a woman, a Ukrainian woman, killed by Russians in Gozmel or someplace, in some place around Kiev, when of course it was a Ukrainian woman who had been killed in Mariupol by Ukrainian forces, Azov battalion forces, indisputably. Okay? Think how cynical. It's such a cynical bastard to take something that his own people had done, a victim of his own disgusting neo-Nazi thugs, and pass it off as having been done by Russians, and oh, poor us, how cynical, how evil, I mean, really evil. It's on my Telegram channel. Go check it out. It's one of the last posts I made before this broadcast. Okay, so anyway, the whole Bucha thing, screw that. That's all Russian, and it's all like desperation, because what's going on is that, see, the Ukrainians are losing, and everyone knows it.